You already know more than you think. You felt it before. That strange, almost unexplainable moment when someone says something but it doesn't feel true. Their words sound right, their smile looks perfect, but something underneath feels off. Most people ignore that feeling. They brush it aside and tell themselves they're overthinking. But that feeling is real, and it's there for a reason, because people are always telling you the truth, just not in the way you expect. From a very young age, you were trained to listen to words, to trust what people say, to believe statements, promises, and explanations. But the truth is, words are the easiest thing to fake. They can be polished, edited, and carefully controlled to create an image that isn't always real. What's real is everything people can't control. The hesitation in their voice, the sudden tone shift, the unnecessary overreaction, or even the silence when something important is mentioned. That's where the truth lives. That's where people reveal who they really are without even realizing it. Because every person you meet is wearing a version of themselves. Not because they're fake, but because they're trying to survive in a world where acceptance matters. Over time, they learn what gets them approval, what keeps them safe, and what helps them avoid rejection. So they slowly build a mask, layer by layer, until it becomes automatic. After a while, they don't even realize they're wearing it anymore. But here's the thing, masks are never perfect. No matter how controlled someone appears, no matter how confident or put together they seem, the mask always slips. And if you know how to look, you'll start to see it everywhere. You'll notice that the person who talks the most about being real is often the one most afraid of being truly seen. The one who constantly says, "I don't care what anyone thinks," usually cares more than anyone else in the room. Because people don't reveal themselves through what they say. They reveal themselves through what they overdo. Exaggeration is never random. It's compensation. When someone keeps repeating something about themselves, they're not trying to convince you. Deep down, they're trying to convince themselves. And that's the first shift you need to make. Stop listening to what people claim and start watching what they defend. Because what someone defends is usually where they feel the weakest. If a certain topic makes someone uncomfortable, if they quickly change the subject, laugh it off, or give a rehearsed answer, you've just found something real. Truth creates tension, and people avoid tension when it gets too close to something they haven't faced yet. But it goes even deeper than that, because most of what people do isn't driven by desire, it's driven by fear. Think about it. Why does someone overexplain themselves? Why do they try so hard to impress others? Why do they stay quiet when they should speak, or speak when they should stay quiet? It's not random. It's fear. Fear of being rejected, fear of being ignored, and fear of not being enough. If you really want to understand someone, stop asking what they want. Start asking what they're afraid of losing, because that fear explains everything. The person who dominates every conversation is often afraid of being forgotten. The one who stays quiet might be afraid of being judged. And the one who tries to control everything is usually trying to calm something chaotic inside them. Control on the outside is often a response to chaos on the inside. And once you understand that, something changes. You stop taking things personally, because you realize most people aren't reacting to you, they're reacting to something inside themselves. This is why criticism is so revealing. When someone constantly points out flaws in others, it's rarely about the other person, it's projection. The person who mocks others for being emotional is usually uncomfortable with their own emotions. The one who calls everyone fake might be hiding behind the biggest mask of all. People attack in others what they can't accept in themselves. So instead of focusing on what they're saying, ask yourself why this reaction? Why this criticism? Because that's where their truth is hiding. And then there's confidence. Real confidence is quiet. It doesn't need to prove itself. But the kind of confidence that's loud, constant, and defensive is usually something else. It's often insecurity or guilt wearing confidence as a costume. When someone constantly needs to show how strong they are, how successful they are, or how unbothered they are, look closer. Because real strength doesn't need an audience, it simply exists. And the more someone performs,
the more you should question what they're trying to hide. Especially today, when you look at how people present themselves, perfect lives, constant updates, endless look at me energy. It seems like confidence on the surface, but a lot of the time it's the opposite. It's a fear of being invisible, a fear of not mattering. So people create noise because silence feels like disappearing.
And when you understand that, you stop judging so quickly because you start seeing patterns instead of just actions. Behind every behavior, there's a reason. Behind every reaction, there's a story. And most of those stories started a long time ago. People don't act randomly. They repeat. They repeat what they learned, what they survived, and what once protected them. The person who never listens might have grown up feeling unheard. The one who avoids closeness might have learned that connection leads to pain. And the one who constantly seeks validation might have had to earn love instead of receiving it. So what looks like personality is often just history playing itself out. And sometimes the people we judge the most are actually reflecting something back to us. Because envy doesn't always look like admiration. Sometimes it looks like criticism. The person who constantly tears someone else down isn't always doing it out of hate. Sometimes they're doing it because that person represents something they wish they could be: freedom, confidence, success. But instead of admitting that, they reject it because it's easier to criticize than to confront what you feel you lack. And once you understand that, you stop being affected by it because you realize it was never really about you. And finally, the most important shift of all, patterns. People might lie with words. They might hide their feelings. They might even believe their own stories, but their patterns don't lie. The person who disappears when things get serious, the one who always creates drama, the one who keeps repeating the same mistakes and the same outcomes, that's not coincidence.
That's someone showing you again and again where they're hurt, what they fear, and how they protect themselves. And when you learn to see patterns, you don't need explanations anymore. You start understanding people without them having to say a word. But this isn't about becoming judgmental. It's the opposite. Because when you truly see people, you realize something powerful. Most people aren't trying to hurt you. They're trying to protect themselves from rejection, from pain, and from feeling like they're not enough. And once you see that, you stop reacting with anger. You start responding with awareness, maybe even with a little compassion. Because you begin to recognize the same patterns in yourself, your own fears, your own defenses, your own mask. And that's the real point of all this. It's not just about understanding others, it's about understanding yourself. Because the more clearly you see people, the more clearly you begin to see your own patterns, your own reactions, and your own story. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. And that's where everything begins to change.